What will Ruben Amorim bring to Manchester United? We're going to look at the tactics, the philosophies, the setup, in and out of possession, the personality of the man who will be Manchester United's next permanent manager. We're going to see what he did at Sporting and how that can all come to Manchester United and bring success to the club. So Ruben Amorim has garnered a lot of attention and plaudits for his job at Sporting Lisbon. He brought them their first league title in 19 years, playing a new, modern and interesting style of football. Let's just get straight into this. What formation does he play? That's the first question. It is a 3-4-3 formation. And of course, with all modern formations, there's different variations on that. It's a 2-1-1-2-4. It's all sorts going on. But fundamentally, it's 3 centre-backs, it's wing-backs, it's 2 midfielders, 2 wingers and a striker. Man United have struggled to have a cohesive style from game to game in recent seasons, and that's something that you absolutely will get under Ruben Amorim. And let's first of all have a look at how his teams play with the ball, building out from the back. As with most modern teams, most modern managers, keeping the ball and controlling it from your goal to their goal is crucial to Ruben Amorim's play. He's a very high possession, high chance creating manager. His tactics have seen his team go 9 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws in the first 9 games this season, scoring 30 and only conceding 2 in the process as well. They also scored 96 league goals the season they won the league last year, and are just a team who creates a hell of a lot of chances and doesn't concede many chances. It's sort of very, very modern football and the sort of thing you'd expect from a United side trying to get back to the top. Let's have a little look at how they play out from the back then, and this is a shot from last season's Europa League where they played Arsenal, a tie that they eventually went on to win with penalties. You can see here immediately on the ball Sporting's layout. So you can see here it's a 2-4-1. And then obviously further up the pitch, you've got the attackers and the wingers as well in there. But this is how they play out from the back. And Amorim is an absolute master of the press. And not just how his teams press, but how he basically manipulates the opposition's press. He wants them to come onto him. He wants them to push really high up so they leave gaps in behind. And we'll show multiple examples and the flexibility of the ways that they do that. Because it's not just play through the middle and get up the pitch. He's not frightened to go long and change things and do things a little bit differently as well. So if we go back to this here, so from this position, what they'll often do is you can see these balls, these out balls to the wings, which is obviously something that United tend to do a lot at the moment and try and play those kind of rondo style build-ups on the wings, getting out that way. They'll often not do that. And something that they'll do quite often is these sort of ping passes into that midfield or sort of defending midfielder who is now acting as a defensive midfielder, and they'll tend to do these sort of pinged, almost like bounce back passes to the goalkeeper. So they'll do this thing where they'll bring the opposition on, and then what they'll do is they'll play it into the defender, he goes back to the keeper will go back to the defender, and the ball will also end up back where it started, but now the opposition has been manipulated and pulled out of position. You can see here eventually they do that sort of ping pong passing, and eventually they break through in a more kind of traditional, we're playing out from the back way, keeping possession, short passes and breaking through Arsenal's press. And now you can see on this front line, Sporting have got a 3-on-3 that they can utilise and exploit in many different ways. And again, you still see that classic, the wingers pushing really, really wide. And oftentimes, like I mentioned before, they use them as dummies. These are sort of decoy players holding that position in order to allow spaces in the middle for players to make runs. People have to push up and cover those wing backs, which means that the strikers and the attacking midfielders beyond them have a lot more space. And this is something that he does time and time and time again, Ruben Amorim. Always trying to create space in the centre of the pitch, which is what he feels is basically the most important area on the whole pitch. So a second piece of build-up play here that I want to show you looks very similar to the last one. If we can show this here, basically you would say, well, this is the image we've just seen. You've got the 2 centre-backs, you've got the third centre-back pushing into the middle, you've got the 2 wing-backs out wide, and that second defensive midfielder there. But this is about the flexibility of Ruben Amorim. Once again, the Arsenal press has pushed right up the pitch there, trying to win the ball back from Sporting. Again, they've managed to sort of have these players here who have got a lot more space than you'd expect out in these wing areas because they stay so wide. Both of them touching the sidelines there, meaning that there's a maximum amount of space for those players to be found in. And again, in the last one, where they ping the ball back and forth between the centre-backs and the goalkeeper, this time, the players know and the manager knows where the runs are going to be made. They just go along with it. And the centre-back just sees the runner in the distance and plays the ball straight over the top. And this was just as effective. They basically, Arsenal, as we go on here, Arsenal didn't expect this to happen because most teams will have one way of playing and stick to it. Sporting nearly scored from that. They cut inside and unfortunately the ball goes wide. But if you imagine Marcus Rashford or Garnacho on the end of that chance, you may well see a different outcome. And it's that tactical flexibility that is so crucial for Ruben Amorim. We saw with Erik ten Hag at times he would stick to his style regardless of injuries or personnel, and sometimes that would cost us. We wouldn't have the legs in midfield to support his sort of up and down football that we saw under Ten Hag. Ruben Amorim has multiple different styles within his basic structure, which I think is very, very exciting. So as we saw there, it's more of a 2-4-2-2 system when they're playing the ball out from the back with that extra centre-back moving into midfield. And it just means that there is more area covered across the pitch. However, the only downside to this is it relies on your centre-backs being very good on the ball. And if they can't find those out balls, that ball over the top is a 60-yard through ball. Maybe Martinez can play that pass. I think De Ligt maybe can as well. But you do have to have good players to play this system. And I think that's something we found under Ten Hag. When you don't quite have the personnel, sometimes what you're being asked to do can seem a little bit daunting. Under Ruben Amorim, United are going to have top players to play this style. Another thing that they focus on with Ruben Amorim is playing the ball into the striker's feet. He can then lay it off to the number 10s. There'll be runners off the ball in behind that the play can go through. And we see this in pretty much every single game they play. They rank very highly in the league in terms of cutbacks into the box. That's a way we're going to see Manchester United score goals. People always say, I don't know how United score goals. I don't know what our identity is going forward. It will be very clear very quickly what that is under Ruben Amorim. And if it isn't clear very quickly, then we may have to start looking at some of the players, because there's no doubt Ruben Amorim has very much got a style down that he likes to play and ways of creating chances. So you can see here again in that game versus Arsenal, they've managed to force this sort of mini counter-attack. And this wasn't Arsenal having the ball and Sporting breaking quickly. This was Sporting playing out through that press once again, like we saw before. You've now got this width being maintained on the left and right hand side. The defenders have been dragged into the middle to cover not just the runner but the man on the ball, and it's left an absolutely massive gap out here for the ball to be played into. If you move on again, you can see here now the cutback and the cross is available. The ball to the back post comes in and almost ends up in the back of the net. But the reason I picked this clip is because they don't score from the initial counter-attack. They don't score from that initial phase. What Ruben Amorim is so good at is restructuring and allowing players to fill in positions that they wouldn't necessarily usually be in, as long as it ends up having the initial structure there. So you see they reset the possession. You've now got this front line of 6 players playing for Sporting there, which means that all of these Arsenal players have to sit back on the edge of their box, allowing there to be more space for those number 10s in and around the centre of the pitch. The ball goes out to the right hand side. And again, this is a crucial thing under Ruben Amorim. Runs off the ball. At times for Manchester United, we see the likes of Marcus Rashford, of Garnacho, of Anthony and Sancho in the past, not making those runs behind in close areas. We like it when it's a counter-attack from the halfway line, but sometimes we'll see us playing the ball around the edge of the box without those runs in behind. Under Amorim, that will not happen. You can see here the ball comes inside, and immediately the central player here knows that he has to make this run to alleviate the pressure of the ball player. The ball goes in behind, and next up, again, as is always the case with Sporting, it is that cutback cross, and the ball ends up in the back of the net. And that is a textbook goal under Ruben Amorim. Runners off the ball, number 10s making space in behind and cut back to that central striker. That's something we're going to be seeing a lot. So out of possession, what do Ruben Amorim's teams do? Well, we can expect high pressing, intense football when the opposition have the ball, winning the ball high up and scoring quick goals. As we see with a lot of modern managers, we kind of know what to expect there. The technical and deep levels of triggers and all that stuff, we don't necessarily need to go into, but we can expect high pressing, high intensity football when we're off the ball. And you can see here that 3 at the back in attack then obviously becomes a 5 at the back when you are out of possession, meaning that those balls through, those balls in behind are less able to penetrate. And again, you have to have those quick wingers. In terms of weaknesses, what will we face under Amorim? And unfortunately, it's a lot of the stuff we've seen under Ten Hag and under these modern style pressing structures. It's counter-attacks, it's balls in behind, balls down the lines. Whenever you misplace a pass, you'll often leave your defence exposed. And this is the problem that we've seen at Manchester United. If you don't have the right personnel in there, all of a sudden, you're 2 goals down. The Liverpool game this season springs to mind. Casemiro gives that ball away, and almost, seconds later, Liverpool have taken the lead. That sort of thing can happen under Ruben Amorim, but hopefully we'll see differences in personnel, differences in confidence, and ways to mitigate that kind of chance creation for the opposition. But it is going to happen. You have to accept, if you're going to press really high up the pitch, there has to be some gaps at the back. Now, mitigating that is up to the manager and the players on the pitch. So let's have a look how Manchester United may well set up under Ruben Amorim. You can see here a starting 11, and weirdly, the signings of De Ligt and Yoro all of a sudden make a lot more sense. It didn't really quite work to me that we were bringing in 2 new centre-backs, both of which are going to want to play every week, when you've already got Martinez in the club. Did Manchester United know something we didn't? Was Amorim always on the lips of Ineos when the season started, or is this just a sort of happy coincidence? You can see here Onana in goal, of course, and his playing out from the back is going to be perfect under this system. His ability to take the ball off the defenders, quick kind of ping-pong passes, and make that space for his centre-backs is going to be absolutely crucial. And I think Martinez and Yoro in particular will shine under this system. Martinez, his ball-playing ability, his ability to get the ball through the lines, straight to Højlund's feet, bouncing that off to the likes of Bruno and Rashford. And we look at this as sort of Bruno in the wing position. It's not really a traditional wing position because you always have Mazraoui and Dalot, or Shaw and Mazraoui, whoever it may be. You always have them as your sort of true width in the opposition third if you need them. Bruno and Rashford are there to link the play up, they're there to split the lines, and they're there to create these boxes on the edge of the 18-yard box that can slip Højlund through, that can play Dalot through to cut the ball back to Rasmus Højlund. And if I'm Rasmus Højlund, I am licking my lips at the idea of Ruben Amorim. Gyökeres has scored basically a goal a game since he went to Sporting Lisbon, and hopefully Højlund can do a similar thing. They aren't the same player, but if you're putting a mould on a player, they're not too dissimilar. They're both big, tall, physical strikers, good positioning, very good in the box, good finishers of the ball. Rasmus Højlund has overachieved on his XG since he arrived at Manchester United, and I think that you could probably tweak some things and have him working as a true number 9 under Ruben Amorim and a goal-scoring number 9. He finally might actually have people pass to him. And again, you look in the midfield here, Kobbie Mainoo and Ugarte. You can see De Ligt pushing into that midfield area as well when United are on the ball. And I just think that this is a very balanced side. You'll also have the likes of Garnacho to bring in. You've got Ahmad as well in there. There's Mason Mount, there's Xerxes, there's Luke Shaw. There's so many players that can come in and out of this side. My only worry is if Martinez, De Ligt or Yoro get injured, how does Johnny Evans play in a 3 at the back? How does Maguire play in a 3 at the back? The crucial thing to remember is the 2 outside centre-backs are by far the most progressive in these systems. They're the ones that have to play the ball. So whoever can pass the best, obviously Martinez and one other, they will be the ones that progress the ball most often under Ruben Amorim. And I personally think, I'm looking at that side, and I think finally we might get a little bit more out of Dalot. I think that Mainoo and Ugarte can work very well as a sort of ball-winning and ball-progressing pair in the middle. And I think we're going to see a lot more out of Bruno because his runs and his passing ability will be perfect for this system. The little balls around the edge of the 18-yard box where you have these cluster of players all trying to feed balls into the middle, he's going to be sensational at that. For me, I look at that squad and I think that's a very exciting one. And over the next year or two, we can see definitely massive things out of Manchester United with the right transfers and with a little bit of backing that you would assume Ruben Amorim will get. Right, so Ruben Amorim is one of the most exciting managers in Europe. He's done sensational things with Sporting Lisbon and he's set to become Manchester United's next permanent boss. We've seen what he does. We've seen how they build up from the back, how they play this sensational 3-4-3 attacking football. And of course, these days you can't be attacking without being good defensively, and he can do that as well. One thing to say about this is, when Ten Hag arrived, we did a similar video. And we looked at all of his tactical prowess and what he could do. And 2 years later, United looked like an uncoached mess. Let's hope that Ineos have made a structure and an environment at Manchester United where the new coach is set up to succeed. Because if he is, and if he is Manchester United's first head coach rather than manager, I think that this guy can do massive, massive things at Manchester United.